to buy accents off the market. I've been missing out.
Oh, well, special markets, you see. That's where you have to go to.
Okay, so you've gotten to watch a couple of them, so you have the basic gist of how this goes?
I have, yes. I've got a box of tissues waiting in case I start crying, you know, so...
I have the feeling you'll be harder to crack.
Well, I don't know. You've been quite thorough on some people's critiques, so I'm looking forward to mine.
I am too. I gotta tell you, you're not as easily won over as the others. We've been talking about you in the chat, so
Oh, no.
I don't know if you're actually paying attention or if like it's just letting us know. But we're like, he never ever responds. He doesn't like us as much, and this is like a really intense relationship. Like it took a lot of courage for me to work up to come and be like, hey, would you come be part of my cohort? And then I had to sit and wait and see if you were going to say yes. So, you know, I'm invested here.
Yes, that's right. No, of course, I got your invitation, and I looked at it and I thought, crikey, you know, it's brilliant, because of course I've been waiting for an Arcanum invite for so long. I was thinking, I'm just completely out of it. They don't want me. I'm not wanted. So I thought, okay, you know, I'll live with it. I'll get over it. And then, of course, I thought, crikey, but I'm actually really busy at the moment. Can I give it the time I need to? So I thought, oh no, and I toyed with it for about a week, and it was right on the end of the invite, and I thought, I've got to say yes, just because I'm going to say it. I looked at your work, I looked at some of the people's, and I thought, absolutely, I've got to go on that. Got to go to that that invite. So I did, but it was right to the edge. So I apologise. I hear that, of course, it does take you a while to get the responses. So it's not always good.
Well, you know, it's a little bit of a blending process. We want to give you time to make sure that we're a good fit and figure us out too. So, you know, it was difficult, and patience is not a virtue that I carry naturally, but you were totally worth the wait. So.
No, patience is not one of my virtues either. So totally understand where you're coming from. Totally.
Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go up to the top and you're going to click on the screen share, and then I'm going to select your screen so that it stays on you, and just wherever you're pulling your photos from, that's the window that you want to select. So once we get that...
I'll go to desktop to start with. Can you see that one?
Hang on.
There we go. Can you see that okay?
Usually takes a bit to come over.
Sorry? You should have my light now. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. There we go. First photo.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about this and how you created it and what went into it.
Right, so this photo, it was taken in sort of obviously in Beijing, China, in the Forbidden City, and we sort of turned up for the day quite early, trying to miss the hordes of people. Of course, we turned up with about 12 million other people trying to get in there early, of course, as well. So by the time we got to these spots, they were all flooded with people, as you can imagine. So lots and lots of people everywhere. Now, the difficulty, of course, trying to get a nice structural shot that's nice and clear and clean and out of, you know, not with people in it, is quite troublesome when you have thousands of people walking past you every couple of seconds. So it took probably about 20, 30 minutes to get this actually as a clean shot. It's the only one I got with actually the original image doesn't have people in it. All the others actually had tons of people in that I had to edit out afterwards, which was very frustrating. So this shot really was kind of a shot of the structure. I wanted to get the grandiose feeling of entering into the Forbidden City. And this is not the main entrance, it's one of the sort of smaller internal entrances. But it gives you that kind of feeling of mystique and mystery and kind of what's happening behind those doors. And if you're like a sort of peasant in those kind of days, coming up to these doors thinking, wow, look at the grandeur and the beauty of it, that's kind of what I wanted to capture. You know, the kind of the essence of its mystery, its power and sort of all those kind of things. So hence I sort of overpowered the sort of got the colours and got the sort of the height on it, if you like, with the angle of the camera. Now I didn't have a very good sky on the day. It was quite rubbish, to be honest with you. It was very flat and plain and boring. So I composited a sky in the background, and then of course. I think it's like the law, if you put a sky in, you must put birds in with it. It's like a law of photography or something. So I did that as well, just to give a little bit of motion, a bit of freedom and things like that. So that's pretty much it.
Very good. I love this image. I loved it when you shared it originally. And it's really, really hard for me, because I'm supposed to be the master, to not become a fangirl and be like, oh my God, I love it so much. But I really do.
Oh, wow, awesome.
And well done with the birds, because I can't tell you how many composite shots I see where people just are not paying attention to perspectives, and they have like the birds where you can see the underside of the belly even though they're underneath the shot of the model that is shot down on. So
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
so you did a very good job at compositing that.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Good.
And I was going to ask you about whether or not the sky and the clouds themselves were composited, which means it's really well done, because I had the feeling that it was, but I couldn't pull it. And a lot of times I can tell what elements are added in. So I love the colors of it. I love the texture that it just looks old. Like even like the texture in the paint with the burgundy and the fuchsia kind of colors and the old door and the way that the bricks are, everything just leads right into that door. So I think you definitely accomplished that whole magical drawing you in kind of thing. This is kind of what I think the door of the Arcanum would look like if it was a physical building.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I totally agree. That's that. I mean, the thing that I tried to sort of get right, which I'm not sure if it was 100% perfect, was kind of the color balance between the blue and the red and the sort of the gray. Sort of try and get something that gives you, I guess, 3 different parts of the picture. I'm not quite sure if I've quite got that, but it's sort of, you know, it generally tries to give you a different sort of set of colors throughout. So.
Yeah, it definitely feeds in. The only thing that I can really kind of pull any real critique from, I think, and I don't know that I don't like it or that I do, which is always good. The blue in the center that I guess is like a tablet, it looks like it has writing on it that's like dead center. That blue is very, very like high saturation, and the rest seems a little bit desaturated in comparison. So I think it just competes just a little bit with the door, but on the other hand, I kind of think that it's like a crowning jewel for it, so I kind of like it too.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Actually, I hadn't even thought about that before, but I do see what you mean. It's kind of quite a stark difference, isn't it?
Just a little bit, though. Like it's just a little too much, but I can't figure out if I like it or I don't. So I guess it would depend on, like, if there was this excellent story about, you know, what the tablet is or how it was hung and that was the feature, then I would love it. But I think the story is more about the door, so it just pulls my gauge just a little bit after the initial look.
That's a very good point. Yeah, yeah.
But all in all, I really love it. I'm going to give you an exemplary.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next image.
So next one. So this is it's in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. We've been traveling sort of most of the morning, visiting various places in the desert. Believe it or not, there's actually a Gobi forest in the desert, which I kind of found amusing, especially when I got there and it was about 3 small shrubs, you know, sort of about a foot high, which was meant to be a forest, so kind of cool. But this is kind of just generally middle of nowhere, not much going on around it, and there's this sort of little temple. And we came up here, and I thought I was going to be disappointed by the fact that it was, again, just something, you know, sort of in the middle of nowhere, nothing really, you know, sort of magical about it. But I guess when I looked at this building, it just had something about it, that the sort of the way that the architecture flows, the way that sort of the building is structured, and the you know, sort of almost alien-like sort of shape of it, if you like. I thought there's something certainly magical here, and I wanted to capture something that showed more than just sort of the, you know, this temple in the desert, but something that was more of a temple sort of in time, that gave you a feeling of I don't know, magical, I guess, magical, mystical kind of feeling again. And that's kind of why I went with the sort of the sky. Now the sky actually was fairly decent. It had some nice clouds in it. It wasn't particularly amazing, but it wasn't bad. And at the time, I didn't think about doing a sort of a long exposure. But I did, after the fact, do that. So this is a post-production long exposure for the sky. So I'll be very honest about it. I'm not going to tell you fibs about it. It was done magically in the camera, all that kind of stuff. I cheated a little bit afterwards. So I did make a few mistakes with that. I don't think it's quite perfect. There's a lot of little things that I see around the edges that annoy me to death now. But I guess in terms of redoing, I could do that. But I think it's there and thereabout to me. So again, it comes back to that kind of feeling of sort of something real, but a little bit on the edge of surreal, so a little bit more fantastical than the real, but not too, you know, fake that it's not actually what you could see happening in reality. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I really love this one too. You're I I have to like find some things to critique. I'm hoping your other ones aren't as good as these two, because otherwise everybody's gonna be mad. Um, I actually really like this guy. I think that it's more apparent that this one was probably done digitally, but it doesn't bother me necessarily. And again, I think that the motion, like it almost looks like you radial blurred it.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that the lines from that then pull you direct center to the center of the piece in the statue. Like it just draws your eye in. So again, you have that like almost like vortex black hole kind of feeling of just being sucked in visually that I really, really love. I'm really digging the fact, and I've noticed this a lot, when you shoot any kind of architecture or landscape or anything in that genre, you are very, very attracted to symmetry. Almost all of the images that you share have this very symmetrical kind of feel that is just really visually enticing. Here, the only thing that kind of grabs me and distracts from that a little bit is, I guess they're like doors or windows or probably other statues on the other two sides, and this is because of the light. Because you changed the sky, so you can't really pull from where exactly the light source is as much, it weighs a little uneven for me on the fact that the one on the left has a really strong highlight on the top of it and the one on the right doesn't. But again, that's being really nitpicky, and it looks like there was some sort of fringe or fabric or curtain, some kind of chimes or something that's hanging from the top, and the wind was blowing this way. So you can see like the fringe kind of go off to the left. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, that kind of ruins your illusion that the clouds, of the motion of the clouds, because then that's the only thing that's giving illusion or giving the interpretation that there's also motion going to the left. So you feel like the clouds should kind of mimic that. So I may have just kind of cloned that out and mirrored it and just taken from the right side just to kind of draw that away. But those are really my only two. Again, I love the texture, and I love the contrast of this smooth fluidity from the clouds against like this really harsh, rough texture of the building. So I'm going to give it another exemplary. I still think overall it's a really strong image.
Cool, thank you. And actually, when you point those out, I do see them now, and it's something that I think actually does stand out quite a lot, but I hadn't noticed them before. So that's really awesome. Oh, fantastic. No, I totally, when you sort of about the sort of the flow of the material, it does make a lot of sense. I hadn't even thought about that. I had looked at that and I thought, wow, I like the kind of texture on it, and kind of looks kind of cool. I hadn't really thought about the physics of it, really. You know, the kind of the flow that's going to happen with wind and things like that, which of course would affect the clouds. So. Oh, interesting. Oh, thank you. Awesome.
Awesome. Next image.
Okay, so this is my girlfriend Jess. Also, she has the name Jessica, of course. Basically, I'm not really a sort of a model person. I've really only shot my girlfriend. That's probably about it, and that was with a lot of bribery. So I have very little experience in this area with lighting and things like that. I'm really quite inexperienced. So it's something I want to do more of, because I think some of the images that I have in my mind that I want to be able to produce require me to understand more thoroughly how lighting works and how people's bodies and shapes and things like that work. So I need to do more of that. So I wanted to put this up, even though it's not something I guess is my sort of my strongest stuff. But I want to put it up because it's the kind of thing that I want to get more into. So I need to know more about that, and therefore, you know, sort of move things forward. So basically, the image. We're taking a few different shots, and I kind of wanted something with this sort of costume jewelry that we sort of found that was kind of somewhat Egyptian-y kind of feel to it, kind of at least, you know, kind of that kind of thing. I then went through a number of different images, and you've seen probably one of the other ones, which is just a dead straight-on shot of her. However, this one was done again. It was something in post that I thought it kind of felt with the image and the way that she was looking that I wanted to put something else with it. So I actually toned the skin and put the blue paint, if you like, across her eyes, and sort of bumped up the eye colours, etc., to get that kind of feeling of almost a sort of an ice queen kind of look. So I was going for something that was a little bit more. Again, it's not just the norm; it's a little bit outside of that. I think that's kind of probably a theme you'll see throughout a lot of these images. That I want to go something that's just a little bit beyond reality, something that's interesting and cool and magical, but not quite completely fantasy, if that makes sense.
Okay. I think you killed it on the styling. I think it's awesome and dead on and strong, and she has the face for it. If she was my girlfriend, I would shoot her all the time too. Um, that said, I'm a big fan of nailing the skin texture, and there's a lot of texture, but I think with the highlights and the paint and just the way that you processed it a little bit, it almost looks a little bit muddy to me. So it doesn't have that really beautiful look where it's like believable that it's natural, beautiful, flawless skin. And this is something that will come with time, especially if you're not used to it. But I like the fact that you're keeping everything kind of tack sharp, and it's kind of echoing your architecture work a little bit in that you are very drawn to very strong texture and contrast. There's something about her chin that bothers me, and I don't know if you liquefied or worked that at all, or if it's just the lighting, but it's just right along the very edge of the chin, you kind of lose it in the neck a little bit. So I would have liked to have seen like maybe just a little bit of dodging and burning just to continue that line, because it's very strong right towards like her ear down, and then you lose it in the front.
Right. Yes.
I love the eyes. I'm guessing that you punched up the color a little bit, which I don't mind that they kind of match the blue of the paint, but they're just a little bit overdone to the point that they don't look believable, and you can make these really striking images with these unnatural colors that sell it enough that you go, oh, well, maybe that is her real eye color. But I love the blue and the orange, and I love that those are reflected in the beading of it. She definitely kind of nailed the expression with this kind of coy, in charge kind of thing. She's got this Amazon priestess thing going on with the energy that she's giving you, and it's really, really hard to get models to break that fourth wall and be able to make a connection with the viewer, and I think she is doing that here. So I'm going to give it a commendable. I think you can definitely do better, but I don't think it's a totally lost shot. I still think it's really strong.
Awesome, thank you. No, I had pretty much the same sort of concerns, really. I did. It's probably one of the not so good edits I've done on skin. I'm not saying I'm particularly good in any of the edits, to be honest with you, but certainly this was one of the weaker ones, and I did toy with whether to show it or not. But I think just the style of it, I think, was more kind of what I wanted to sort of get into, so I thought it was probably more relevant to do that. But absolutely, I think the eyes too. I've faffed around with these eyes for God knows how long now, trying to get them to be in between kind of believable and fantastical. And I think I do feel like I've messed it up a little bit, and now you're obviously echoing that as well. So makes a lot of sense. Yeah, good. Thank you.
Do you still have like the raw unretouched file of this?
Yeah, should do. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're interested, and if you don't mind, if you want to send it over to me, then I'll take a look at it, and what I'll do is I'll screen share and record and do a full portrait retouch. That way you can just kind of get a feel for it, and maybe it'll put some things into play on how to do those things, and we can kind of walk through it if you're interested.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Yeah. Brilliant.
Awesome. Okay, next image. We'll talk that
cool.
later.
Okay. So next image. Oh, I click the right button. There we go. This is the one I shared in the image that defines in sort of the first round. Mm-hmm. This is taken in Cambodia, in Angkor Wat, which is the main sort of temple in the Angkor complex. We had been to rent a monk for the day and purchased ourselves a monk. We had someone very nice to come along and sort of, afterwards gave them a gift of some donations and so on. But essentially, we had a couple of these guys coming around with us to sort of standing certain poses and things like that. And basically, we've got kind of just a nice small doorway, a little bit of a window, if you like, for light to come through. And whilst it was probably quite much lighter than this, it was quite bright. I felt that actually the important thing here was actually the essence of his spirit looking out and sort of into the world, but really he's only showing a part of his soul, if that makes sense. It's kind of a part of his personality, a part of his life. So you're not seeing everything. There's some hidden mystery to this guy that you don't actually see. but actually what's in the light is quite beautiful and quite pensive and quite serene. So it was, again, about that kind of sort of feel of the image. But I also liked, of course, the composition in terms of how to structure a lot of negative space. I did fight the urge to get rid of the two sort of lights coming through, the sort of two lighter bits on the right-hand top side. So I'm not quite sure if that is perfectly right or not, but I kind of felt that it balanced the image better doing it that way. I do have another image of him which is closer up and I think a little bit sharper and a little bit better in terms of the quality around his face in particular, a bit more sort of detail in the shadows there. But it wasn't positioned as well. It was cut off right at the bottom, so it sort of, I think this one was the better of the two that I really liked out of the set, really. So that's pretty much that one.
I really liked this one when you showed it too, and this was the first one that you shared. So you really set the bar high for expectations for you for the rest of the time that you're in here with this.
Oh, no.
No pressure.
No pressure, indeed.
I totally get what you're saying about the mystery, and I want to love the idea of the negative space, but I think that it would have been stronger with just a little bit more. It's such a harsh contrast of light, and there's almost no fall off whatsoever. And I would have liked to have seen like just a little bit more of his figure. Particularly, I think the thing that bothers me most is that he either has his arms crossed, or at least he has one drawn across his body. So it really, really severs that limb entirely, because there's just this break in the red of just this like little square of flesh tone, and there isn't enough information there visually to tell really what it is or where it's going. Like, there should always be just enough that you can tell what the position of them was. So with this, I feel like, it just really amputates his hand and his arm entirely, and you can't tell. Like, I can't tell if it's the left one coming across or the right one. I think it's the right one. I can't tell if there's two. So I think visually you kind of get paused there trying to figure that out, and that pulls you away from understanding and appreciating the image as a whole. But I love the light on his face, and the tonality and the structure of the neck and the folds of the fabric. I really like that a lot. It would have been interesting to see, I think, just a little bit more of where he is. Like, it's very obvious that there's the windows. I would have liked to have seen just a hint of texture and a little bit more to kind of ground him in. But I also like it the way it is, and with the story that you have in the way that you explain the image, then I think it works perfectly. The toss-up is always between the fact that most people that view your work don't have you there to go, well, this is what I was thinking when I created it and what I was after. So the photo has to kind of tell the story itself. So I'd be interested too to see it cropped a little bit differently and pulled in a little tighter, where the bottom of the image may come up to where the fall off of light is on the red a little bit, just to pull in, because he's just far enough away that you can't really tell, but I feel like he just has this really wonderful, serene kind of at one feeling and expression on his face, and you kind of lose it just a little bit just because it is so far pulled back. So I'd be interested to see how this works as a closer up crop.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I think I have toyed with that sort of that quite a while, actually, in terms of, do I try and pull something back from the shadows? Do I keep it as a kind of a harsh, just simply a fragment of a person, if you like? And I think I agree. It would be nice to have something extra in there. I guess what I'll try and do is I'll play around with the original again and see if I can get sort of a bit more sort of light out of those shadows, and see if I can bring something back that keeps the integrity of the idea, but doesn't. It is a bit harsh. I do totally agree with you. It does seem to cut off very, very quickly. So yes, I'll have a little play with that one.
Yeah, and it's entirely probable that you'll do that and share it in the group, and then I'll tell you, nope, I like the original. So it just kind of depends. Like, those are all things that I look at and think from the perspective of artists, but overall I still think it's a really beautiful piece. So I'm going to give you a commendable for it, 2 points.
Great, thank you. Awesome. Okay, so the final image. This is probably the lowest quality of my images in terms of the quality of the pixels, if that makes sense. This was taken in Syria back in 2011 or 10. It was 10 or 11, one of those. And basically, it was sort of one of the back streets in Aleppo. Basically, I'd sort of I was going around looking for shots with the nice lighting and the old sort of historical sort of buildings and so on. And I saw this gentleman sort of walking past. Oh, that'll be a nice idea. I'll try and get something as he's walking away, And of course, I had my D90 with me at the time, which was not particularly great on the ISO. I leant up against the wall a little bit and tried to brace myself and got the slow shutter speed I could. And really, the quality of the image, I think, did suffer quite a lot. There's a lot of noise in that I've taken out, and a lot of things I had to sort of soften up a little bit just to get those the noise out of it. And of course, I'm trying to sharpen up the edges around the character himself. So I think, apart from that, though, I think that is is a quality thing with the image, but I kind of put it in because I don't actually care about that so much. I mentioned it because obviously it is the lower quality in terms of that technical side of it. But for me, it was really the story of this that I just loved it. It's one of the things, the earliest images that I created, and I kind of love it in a way. So I feel a bit guilty putting it on just because of that reason. But I think it has that kind of, again, that mystical quality, that sort of the shadowy man walking away. Sort of the feeling of what is he doing? What's he thinking? And what's the situation? And I think engenders quite a lot of thought in the viewer, in my opinion, anyway. So hence I thought I'd put this up and put it out for critique in that way. So yeah.
So if it's one of the first images, bravo, because my first images don't look anything like that. So it's a really good understanding of light play if it was very early. I agree with you. I think it has a really strong story, and I don't ever have a problem with people including work because they love it rather than because they think it would score well in competition kind of thing, or that it'll get high marks. And I'm guilty of that all the time myself. But the bottom line is that I don't care if you have like an incredible talent and knack for shooting soda cans if what you really love is people or architecture, and that's where you excel. I would rather you shoot from a place of passion than a place of proficiency, because we can always teach the proficiency. That said, from the visual standpoint, I think that this is probably the weakest image of the group. And that may just be because it doesn't really fit with the other. Like, you kind of split yours and you have these two really beautiful high texture architecture kind of things, and then you had these very striking portraits, and this one is still this is kind of like a marrying of the two, but there isn't enough information in the light to really make it a really strong architectural one, and there isn't any information about him, so he's kind of anonymous. So I don't think you're getting enough power from either of them by themselves to just really smack it out of the park. I love the idea of the story. It's kind of bothering me that he's a little bit off-center, but if you were grabbing it just as you were passing, then it's different because he's not a model, so you can't really play with where he is. The thing that,
his language either, so I couldn't tell him to move.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that bothers me is that the shadows are so contrasty and dark that there isn't enough separation from the top of his head. You're losing him in the shadow of the building there. I do love the long shadow falling off his body, like behind him, and I wish that there was a little bit more light underneath him to really kind of feature that, because that just amplifies the story of like this long road that he's on, because you can kind of tell from the way that he's walking that it's like been a long day kind of thing, and I think that would have accented it a little bit more. It's pretty, but I definitely don't think it's your strongest work. I don't think it would make the collection if you were picking portfolio images. It's going to be one of those ones that you love and always want to add that, you know, you're going to get your hands slapped not to. So I think it shows promise, but I don't think it's quite up to par with your other work. So 1 point.
Makes sense. Yep.
Isn't that awful when it's the one that you love and have an emotional attachment to, and they hear that one?
No, well, I kind of expected it in a way, to be honest. Hence, prefacing with the picture with that sort of preamble of what it was and why it wasn't so great. I definitely agree that the sort of the positioning of the guy. It would have been ideal if he was sort of a couple of feet back or a couple of feet further forward to get into the light with his head in particular, to give that more separation of the background and him. So yeah, it's the only one I have. I got sort of 3 or 4 of him going down this alleyway, and those were complete throwaways. They were just so blurry and unusable that I couldn't use them. So this was the only one I could take away. But I still love it. So.
I do too, but as far as me giving you harsh critique, like that's probably the one that I would cut if we were picking images for your portfolio.
No, I need that. Absolutely, I need that because it's sometimes very difficult to step away from your own work. And as I said in one of my comments on the forum, that when you love all your children, you don't want to get rid of any of them. Even the ugly ones. So this was certainly a difficult one to choose. But I thought I'd put it in anyway.
Awesome. Okay, so you can turn off the screen share. And
okay.
We have about 30 minutes, so let's talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing and what you want to do, and what you're looking for in the Arcanum and where you're going from here. Are you shooting full time? Is this your full time gig right now?
No, not at all. No, this is. I started photography 2010, 2011. So just before I went to Syria. I've kind of enjoyed it as a hobby during that time. I have a pretty busy career with things at the moment. I'm set up a new business at the moment to do with my sort of my other stuff, if you like, and not to do with photography. And that takes a lot of my time. Hence, I was very reluctant to join because I was worried that I wouldn't give it enough time that it needed to get my sort of full attention. So I kind of worried a little bit about that. So really, photography is a hobby of mine. It's a very passionate hobby. I love doing it. I really enjoy the art of it. I think it releases that kind of creativity that I require in life, through some kind of format or medium. I can't draw for toffee. I can't paint. I can't sing, anything like that. So I have to use something. And of course, taking a photograph is, easier than all those things for me. Then playing around, editing and manipulating it on my laptop is also, much easier than sort of trying to use a paintbrush. So hence, I chose it for those reasons. And I think really it's something I want to continue with that kind of approach at the moment. It's not something I need as a way of earning money. I earn enough money with my other work. But I do want to get better, and I do want to clarify my direction. That's a better way to put it, maybe. There's a focus I need on a certain style. I think the travel photography that I do, I enjoy. I love doing travel photography. I love traveling to places. Jess and I go to a lot of different places together, and I love capturing the spirit of the culture and the architecture and the landscapes and all those kind of things. It's wonderful stuff. I really enjoy that. But what I need to also do is then to add the other half of what I see as my passion. And just creating something, compositing images, creating from an idea in my head, creating an imaginational sort of image from that, which I don't think at the moment I do a lot of. I do a little bit, occasionally get some things, but generally taking a photo of something and then fine-tuning it to make it look, better. I do that right now, but I don't take an image in my head and then create it and then produce something that's really completely new art, if that makes sense. I want to do that more. Certainly with people, I think people are quite essential to that vision. But certainly, be able to, sort of do a lot of Photoshop editing. Hence, do a lot of Flern videos. Erin Nace's got some amazing videos. It's absolutely awesome, really good. And taking kind of those kind of ideas, but bringing in kind of the model to that sort of process for me is a bit scary and daunting because I have no idea what to tell them. I don't know how do I position them. What's the right lighting for them? Honestly, I've played around with it a bit, but it's just not. It's not a skill that I could say, yeah, I've kind of got that in my back pocket now. I can move on and do art with it. It's just I'm still learning all that kind of stuff. So, hence, I wanted to use the Arcanum as a way to inspire me in a direction and clarify that, and to sort of help build that kind of sort of skill in that direction in particular. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you kind of got into that a little bit with the image that you shared with Jess, because there's definitely a lot of forethought into the styling and the idea of that. So do you feel like that was a good beginning into that for you? Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely... it's that kind of thing. I've got a lot of ideas that I do try and draw down sort of ideas when I have them, but it's really, getting that into sort of reality I find a little challenging, specifically if I have a requirement for a model, because there's not a lot of models around here. I do go on Model Mayhem occasionally and look for somebody to work with. I found one person who's relatively close. I live actually quite in the countryside here in the UK, so there's not a lot of local people that do that kind of thing. So a little bit limited, unfortunately.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's definitely traditional outlets like Model Mayhem, and you can put out casting calls and things and look specifically for models. But I mean, I'm guessing that your girlfriend by trade is not a model, right?
No.
Okay, but she's gorgeous and she photographs well, so now she's a model. So it's the same kind of thing. Like you'd be surprised how many people that I found amazingly talented, beautiful, qualified models at the gas station or the Chinese buffet. So a lot of it is just being bold enough to go up to and just say, look, I'm a photographer and I'm doing this kind of work, and I really love your look and I would love to photograph you. Here's my card, drop me a line, let's get in touch. I would love to create something with you, and that's, that's an ego boost for them too. Everybody loves being told that they're beautiful and that they should be a model. Like, nobody's going to be like, oh, how dare you, and the worst comes to worst, then they go, no, I'm not interested, and they don't get in touch, and you're exactly where you were before. So don't be afraid to be bold as far as that goes. And having portraiture and a couple of other things on your website, or having like a little mini portfolio that you just keep on your phone that you can go, look, I was thinking an image like this. Here's this photo that I created. I'd love to create something like that with you. It just starts a conversation. And even if they're not interested, I've had other people that are like, no, that's not really for me. However, my best friend, my sister, my second cousin, 3 times removed, they would absolutely love it. Can I give them your info? Yes, of course you can. And you'll find on social mediums, Facebook, Google, that kind of thing, as you start to post more work, people will just fall in love with you for that. And it's very, very easy to feel a sense of connection and attachment to an artist through their artwork. And if you move them, there will be nothing that they would love to do more than become the muse for a piece of your art. And they will contact you and go, oh my God, I love your work so much. If you ever need a model, and you'll go, well, I guess I can make an exception for you, and use it. And then, then you get to the point, so I never have any problem with photographers shooting time for print, especially at the beginning, or in your case, if you're happy in your career and you have this other business and this is just a really passionate hobby for you that you're doing, where you're not concerned about the financial, then, you don't have to worry about getting paid by the models or what that is. And don't listen to anybody that tells you that undermines the industry, because they're full of it. Their inability to book has nothing to do with you shooting people for free. You'd be surprised how much hate mail I get for statements like this, but I do believe that fully. But
I think you're right, though. That's the thing. So.
Yeah. Just start keeping an eye out, and when somebody moves you, and you will know it, you will look at them and go, oh, God, just yes, like her, and I see her in this kind of gown with these kind of colors, and I want to stand her by this window kind of thing. As soon as you start seeing people like an artist, have the courage to go up to them, because the worst they're going to say is no, and then that leaves you exactly where you were 2 seconds before you approached them. It does not negatively impact anything. But looking at your work in the collection, you have this very authentic, kind of historical but very passionate, kind of tribal feel to your work, whether it's in portraiture or in the architecture. So I would be very interested to see you start blending them and creating these beautiful collections of images where the portraits would sit. Like, I think the image of Jess would fit really well in a gallery right next to the one of the first temple that you showed, with the colors, and that blue that we were saying was so saturated, matches her eyes perfectly in that, and the beading on it. So there's this color theme. So even though they're totally different subject matter and genres, I think they'd fit really well and pair well as a collection. So I could totally see.
I was quite worried about that. I was quite worried about the collection, because obviously I picked out. Well, I actually had about 20 odd to pick from in terms of trying to nail it down. But I had 2 sets of 5. Basically, I had 3 with people in it, and then 5 with people in it, and then 5 with sort of buildings and landscapes and things like that. And I kind of felt they both sat well together, but I wasn't sure if I merged them, I could kind of make that work really. And that's kind of the challenges I think that I had in picking these sort of top 5 to sort of show really.
Well, I think it just depends. You have to be able to find common threads through the work, but they don't have to necessarily be the same subject matter or genre. Like, you couldn't set the second image of the second temple that you showed and put the one of the monk, because there's no correlation between the two that you can make visually to go, oh yes, these two go together. Even if that happened to be, the temple that monk worshipped in, and they were taken 4 minutes apart, there's no visual interpretation that says, yes, these two pair well together. But I think that you would find, if you set the one of Jess next to the first one, with the colors and the heavy texture and the sharpness, that those two would actually marry well. So it's just about understanding the story and the common threads. And for you, that may be a color thing and a texture thing and just little visual cues that you put together. But if you put them beside each other and there isn't a stark severing where you're going 1 image, 2 image, if you don't have to like stop and regroup in order to appreciate the second image, then there's a story and a flow line that will just pull you through all of them. So, as you're traveling and you're going through these things and you're traveling with this gorgeous woman who happens to be your girlfriend and readily available for you, it would be very easy to go and spend a day where you're going, okay, we want to hit these places, and either Googling them or going to scout them out before you shoot. And then going, okay, well, there's all these really beautiful, turquoise colors in, in the coloring of the paint on here. So we're going to go and we're going to find you an authentic, outfit down in the marketplace that follows along that's going to echo that sentiment. And then, you could do portraits of her, you could do the architecture shots, and then you could do her in front of the architecture, and it could be a 3-piece that would fit in. But, it's really, really limitless as far as the creativity. Just find the way to marry the two so that visually it just kind of flows on your website or on the galleries and stuff like that. But I think you could be very, very potent in that, and there aren't a lot of people doing it, which is always good.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's really, I don't want to give up one and just be, so just doing people or just doing architecture or just doing travel shots. I want something that really is, I want to create a style that is my style, and throughout all the images that I create, that you can see that they're my images, that they are the things that I produce, and they have something that's common and consistent amongst them. They're not all obviously, completely compatible, but just generally, there's definitely, they're my shots, and they have this sort of general underlying story within all of them, that has that kind of, the kind of same kind of theme that I've had through most of those images that I've showed you. Rather than having, well, I do my travel shots over here, and but I also do these things over here for like people with portraits or composite shots and things. I don't want them to be separate. I want it to be one consistent story, utilizing different sort of genres, if you like, in terms of people and places and things like that, to help thread that together into one consistent message. I'm glad I can do that. I struggle with the idea of it, but it's certainly what I want to strive for. So.
Yeah, and you definitely can. You just honestly, it's very difficult for most people to be able to do that. And the reason that so many photographers and artists get told to pick their favorite genre and specialize and show themselves as a specialist is because when they see a collection of work from them, they go, oh, your boudoir is so sultry and sexy. But, then they want to do children's portraits, and they're like, oh, look at how cute and light and airy my kids' portraits are. And then it's, oh, look at how monumental and big all of my landscape and architecture work is. And so there's different themes that grow throughout, and because it's such different subject matter, it's really hard for people to go, this is my work and my style and what I'm presenting to you in that, and have that flow throughout all of those things because they're so different. You know, like, how do you sell cans of soda and jewelry at the same time? Like, it would be a very difficult branding plan to come up with that would cohesively honor both. But I think that you have a very unique ability, and I think you're one of the first ones that I've seen that have gone that far outside of genres, because you can't get any further from like architecture and buildings and these stoic, you know, structures to the personal intimacy of doing portraiture. Like, they're just on opposite sides of the spectrum through and through. And a lot of people can't make it work with, say, you know, children's portraits and boudoir, which are both in the portrait genre and the same kind of subject matter in a general sense. So I see a lot of themes that are flowing through both. They're very, very powerful. You have this sort of ethereal magnificence to your images, whether they're of portraiture or of that, and it creates this almost like regal kind of feel that you're standing in the presence of something great. And I think that that would be the common story, whether it's, you know, whether it's beautiful people or beautiful buildings, that there would still be this sense of awe to be in front of it, kind of thing. And I think that would be.
I really hope and strive for that. Absolutely, that's definitely definitely my goal, is to get that kind of, you know, sense of, as you say, ethereal, kind of magical, you know, kind of feel to things that is kind of like a wow. You know, I would like for people to have this on their walls and say, wow, that's just interesting to look at all the time. The reality of it, am I going to get there? Probably not so much, but you know, we'll see.
No, absolutely.
Together,
yes,
you know,
yes, I will get there. I'm very talented, and I will get there because I am JLark's cohort, and I know that she will push me until I do.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Yeah.
No, you don't, though. You're agreeing because we're on air and you have to repeat after me. But don't. That is like, I want you to have enough faith in your work because it's good. I wouldn't have picked you if it wasn't. And you were one of the ones that I went and really looked at your work and went, oh, I like this guy. Let's go check him out. And then I saw your work and I was like, ooh, now I really, really want him. And I did. Like, I sat and waited and was like, did he accept yet? Did he accept yet? Did he accept yet? I was like a little girl, like waiting by the phone, like, is it going to call? Is it ringing?
I feel so guilty. I should have said, on the first day, I should have said yes.
No, it's okay that you played hard to get. I was okay with it. You know, but you do have a strong quality of work, and I don't care if you care whether or not you ever make $1 off of it or you're really happy in your career, but I think that your work has the potential to move people. You know, that there's just this sense of grandeur and connection that they won't have with it otherwise, even if they were standing in the presence of it. There's something about the translation with you from one to the other that I think is so powerful. And if you can go and create that, like, that's museum quality, and they won't be looking to put one piece on your wall. They'll be looking at that and then looking at the portraits you created with that and feeling the story, and they'll have to have all of it, you know? Yeah, and then you'll be competing and you'll be going, well, I really like my job over here and I'm trying to make this work, but if I could just get people to stop buying my stuff and making me busy here, you know, like, I hope that becomes a struggle for you where you have to ask whether or not, you know, you really don't want to make money at it because you are.
Well, me too. Me too. I'd love that problem. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, you know, but a lot of it is, it really does just begin with faith. Like, it really, really does. And it's so hard. Like, we're so sensitive as artists, and we pour so much of ourselves into the pieces, and you are just all over your work, which is the hardest thing to teach. Like, it's the hardest thing to lead people to their own work because we're always our own worst critics. And artists put themselves in their art, so they become very self-critical of their art, and they go, well, it's good, but it's not as good as it could be, or not as good as that person, and I like it, but nothing will probably come of it, and they walk themselves right out of it. And it frustrates me because I'm looking at it and going, oh yeah, huge gallery prints, I can see right in the art museums with this stuff. And you're like, yeah, probably won't ever get there. And it's just, no! Don't do it. So I want you to just look over your work again when we sign off until you feel the same sense of all looking at it that I do, because I think your stuff is incredible, and I want you to have that sense of accomplishment and appreciation for what you're making and how that can affect people just to look at it. Like, what a superpower to be able to create something and show it to somebody else and have it move them. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, absolutely. It is. I guess that's really what I'm going for. I don't need to make a lot of money with photography. I think in a way, I kind of prefer not to have it as my job. Just in as much as I enjoy it, and I don't want to not enjoy it because I'm trying to make money out of it. If someone wants to give me lots of money just for making, this kind of art and stuff, yeah, definitely, please do. That'd be awesome. But it's really about creating something that people go, wow, that's really what's in it for me. So, the more that I can do that, I think in the same time, telling my story through that, not obviously my story, but the story that I've got in my head about it. If I can do those two things, I'll be over the moon. It'll be absolutely fantastic. So I don't think I'm quite there yet in terms of getting my story across, and I'll definitely need a bit of help on sort of how to formulate that idea in the real world with models and lighting and things like that, and how to create those kind of things. I've got it in my head, and I've done bits and bobs, but just nothing that I think is quite right at the moment. So,
look,
but,
okay.
Yeah, it's good to start.
Be anchored in the knowledge that your work is good, but always be striving for improvement. I'm happy with you never being satisfied with it, because that means you're always looking for growth, which is good. Yeah. Absolutely. But at the same time, understand that everybody else is being moved by it and appreciate that side of it too. And the big secret is that there's so many photographers that are in jobs that they don't like, or that they aren't making enough money to really support the kind of lifestyle they want, and they want so desperately to be paid full-time professional photographers. And the hardest lesson to teach them is that photography still makes you an artist, and people are moved by artists because of their expression and their passion. So you are actually more primed to be successful as a business than most others that are trying to be a business, just because art moves people, it affects them, it changes their outlook on everything, and even if it's just looking inwardly towards themselves and how they see things, like, you create these things of beauty. So if you're creating from a place of passion where you are just on fire for your work, that will draw people to you, which will make them want to spend money on you. And a big part of the problem is that everybody else is going, how can I monetize this, and how can I brand myself, and how can I market, and how can I move myself to a higher end? And they get so focused on that side that they kind of leave their passion to the side over here for sometimes really long periods of time, and they can't figure out why they just can't quite hit that sweet spot. And you, I think, are going to have the opposite, where you're going to be so on fire and passionate about it because you're not thinking about any of that will just draw everybody to you. So while everybody else is chasing the clients, they're going to be chasing them right to your backside while you're over here putting up these beautiful images. And they'll be like, hey, come pay attention to me, I want you to, and you'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, were you here? I didn't mean to ignore you. So, all right, so
makes sense. Great.
That's about our hour. Any last minute questions, concerns, comments?
No, just thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's been very useful with everybody in the Arcanum. Actually, the whole cohort has been very helpful and very insightful on my images, and looking at other people's critiques and where they are and what they're doing and how they're working things through. I think all that resonates very well with me. Actually, it comes back to understanding what it is I want to do, and I kind of been thinking about this for quite a while, really, on what is my style, what I want to do, what's the kind of the direction, and I think this is really helping me to sort of drive towards that goal. And certainly, your critique has been extremely helpful today. So I look forward to more of the same, and speaking more with everybody in the group. So great, thank you very much.
Okay, so you're going to go back to the Hall of Records, and you're going to give yourself 1 point for every point you received in critique. And then I'm going to elevate you to level 5, so you're also going to get 50 points for elevating. And then you're going to go in the chat and you're going to say hi so everybody knows you still love us.
Okay, awesome, brilliant.
All right, I'll see you at level 9.
Take care, bye.
Bye.